My name's Kane Vincent Dyer, and I robbed over 100 banks between 1999 and 2001. This is how crime works. For anyone out there that is watching this and you think you're going to go commit bank robberies the way I did, or I'm telling you in here, you're going to find yourself in jail. Leave bank robbery alone. So one of the things that I would do initially when I walk into a bank is walk in and go straight to the merchant teller, because I always knew that the merchant teller would more than likely have the most amount of currency. We've watched so many movies where people are like, hey, put your hands in the air. I think people naturally go to do that when they hear, hey, this is a robbery. The reasoning for me asking them to put their hands down or telling them to put their hands down is because you didn't want someone walking past the bank and seeing someone standing in a bank with their hands up or laying on the floor. So it was always just put your head down, keep looking forward. That way, if someone did walk into the bank, they wouldn't even really realize what was going on until they were already in it. And what that would kind of do is it would let me read the temperature of the room. It would let me see if the people were either very compliant or very slow to move, or if they seemed nervous and scared, then I would kind of tailor how I would express myself after that, trying to be more calming. And, unfortunately, if things were moving kind of slower, I would probably be a little bit more aggressive to the overall crowd. Checking the temperature, doing that one teller, I knew that one merchant teller, I knew if I decided not to go in the vault, that I would still have a reasonable, outcome for the payday. That merchant teller, along with the manager, is the person I would have walk me into a vault. And like I said, if they were just a little too afraid or anything, then there are times where, I wouldn't go into the vault. Typically, I picked banks that were close to merchants. That way, I knew that that bank would more than likely be the banker for all those merchants that were there. And that would mean that that bank would more than likely have more cash on hand. The other thing was it always had to be a bank that was relatively close to multiple interstates. And one of the other things was how the bank was set up. Were there multiple ways that I could enter or exit? Like casing a bank would consist of me watching the employees. And I would always watch to see who looked like they were in the most control. So sometimes I'd case a bank for a day and a half, and then go, if it was a bigger bank. And I would watch the flow. I'd watch the timing of the flow. I'd watch the pickup. I took probably, a few weeks, a month off, and just taught myself everything about banks. At that time, got in a hold of all different types of bank manuals, employee manuals, employee guides, everything, safes, lock safes, time vaults. During my bank robberies, as far as attire would go, I would just always try and fit in whatever element was present. It was always pretty much just dressing down, jeans, a jacket, trying not to stand out too much. I definitely used the crazy glue to protect my fingertips and my palms. I would always wear a pair of glasses, always a baseball cap, and that seemed to cover enough. The mascara would be basically, it depended where I was. If I was in a place where there are more ethnic people, I would typically do a beard. If I was in a place where there were less ethnic people, I would more so sometimes going clean shaven or a really light shave. I would actually look at weather conditions because, of course, in an area where it's going to be raining or overcast, you can layer more. If it was sunny outside, there are a lot more people out. So there's probably more chances for me even to blend in. On a rainy day, though you get to bundle up, you still get to know that there aren't a lot of people out. So people are going to probably be looking at you. In certain cities, you had to account for different times that I would be going into a bank, not getting stuck in a rush hour traffic. Though there were banks that I absolutely would do it rush hour just because it would take longer for law enforcement to get to me if there was a lot of traffic out. So we've seen in movies that cops have this response time of about 3 to 5 minutes. And that's pretty accurate. That is not just Hollywood. So I would park across the street or in some direction where I wasn't alone, standing out by myself. My car wasn't the only one. I always used a car that would fit in, something that was really typical, that you would just see a lot of. What I would always try and do is make sure that wherever I was parked, that it would not be in view of anyone that would be standing in a bank or immediately outside of a bank. So I always gave myself enough space to get away and then kind of disappear. So when exiting a bank, once I felt I was out of sight, I would turn a corner or something, then I would trot a little bit further once I wasn't in front of a bank trotting. As soon as I'm in my car and my mascara is off, I turn on my radio, roll down my windows, take off my hat, and I'm singing. I've got music on. Cops pass me. I'm looking at them. They're looking at me because what they're actually looking for is the guy that's not looking at them. Listen, when a bunch of cops roll past you, or even fire trucks, what do we all do? We all look. So the one guy they're looking for is the guy who won't look at them. As they're driving to it, they're looking to see if anybody's trying to ignore them personally, typically. How I would end up checking for die packs was different depending on what type of money I took. If it was just the merchant teller, then of course that money is loose. Even though it's in stacks, it's still loose. So what I would do is once I got all my mascara and things off and I was set and ready to drive, I would literally put a bag of money next to me and go through it and then throw that money kind of like on the floor. I would get back to my stakeout and I would go through all the money, taking my clothes, making sure they were burned, putting my fingers in solution so I could get the crazy glue off. I would hide the money in several different places, but to be a little bit more specific, there was this one place that I had opened up the floor of it. I don't know, at one point there had to just millions of dollars in this floor. There were a couple of times I actually put money in like a bank vault, in like a safety deposit box. Wouldn't that have been ironic had there been a bank robbery and it gotten stolen, huh? The way I ended up getting into bank robbery, a very, very close person to me, a relative, a sibling, had gotten involved with a criminal organization. There was just no way he was going to get around this debt. It would have been a matter of life or death. Had this debt not been paid, taken care of, the person would have lost their life. Those first set of banks that paid off that debt, those 6, though, were a lot less preparation and more desperation. Initially, I felt bank robbery was this victimless crime. I thought it would just be a better crime to commit. I felt like I was taking from an institution versus a person, which I wouldn't have done. My first bank, I was literally just looking for any bank. I was going down the freeway and actually had to use the restroom. So I pulled off the freeway. It was at this Calabasas exit. I pulled in there to go to the restroom. I ended up parking, and right in front of me were two banks. There was a Chase and there was a Wells Fargo. And I sat there for a time period trying to determine which one I should go in, just watching the flow of people. I had this baseball cap and stuff, and I kind of pumped myself up. Had this firearm with me, and I'm heading towards the bank. And as I get towards the bank, two things happen. One, there was this lady who was at the bank that seemed pregnant to me. And it was just like, I can't go in there while a pregnant lady's in there. She gets scared and, the baby's harmed. So I was like, I kind of turned back. And as I went to turn back, there was this car window right there. And I look in the car window and I notice, oh my God, I can totally see myself. Like I can make myself out. So I went to this store that was miles down the road. I ended up getting this backpack. And I also got some mascara and some crazy glue to put on my fingertips as not to leave any fingerprints, because I didn't want to walk up to the bank with gloves on, which is, to me, pretty obvious. It was a sunny afternoon. There was that cord while I was at this store that just kind of struck me like, what if someone tries to stop me? It made me purchase a replica, like an air gun or something like that, but it looked very, very authentic. So I purchased that and decided to use that in the robbery instead. Realizing that I probably needed a bigger bag, so I ended up grabbing this backpack. I realized that the backpack had these double zippers that I could partially open that would make it like a perfect sack that would be able to put things in, still have another hand free. Hence the name Kangaroo Bandit. When my consciousness started to awaken again, I think I could no longer hide behind the life and death, imminent danger that was there before. I know if I would have kept doing it, I would have got caught. When I decided to turn myself in, of course I let my family know first, and then my attorney and we contacted the FBI. And at first they were like, yeah, oh, absolutely, absolutely. What I did not know at that time was someone had already kind of given them my name. I contacted them on a Wednesday and had planned on meeting them on a Friday. And instead they were like, no, we're not waiting on you to come in. They did this huge raid on my home on a Thursday night. But the only way they were able to take me in is if they found something on that search warrant, which they weren't able to find. Before he left, though, he and I had this conversation, he being the FBI agent. So I told him, I'm going to take some time to go spend with my family. And then when I'm ready, I'm going to turn myself in. And I was letting him know, don't worry, I'm not going to run. I'm not going to bolt, man. I'm going to keep my word. I told you I'd keep my word and turn myself in. And I ended up doing that. So when he saw me and I saw him after I had greeted my family, I actually walked up to him and we kind of embraced. We actually hugged each other. I surrendered. It was like, okay, now I begin my life. Well, I did not understand back in that time the psychological tolls that the victim suffered, the heavy cost I was having others pay to get out of the situation I was in. And so what I've done in an attempt to rectify that or to make right, I've worked with victims. I've worked with ex-offenders, and hopefully any victim that suffered at my hands and because of my actions, maybe they can take some comfort in knowing that today I actually, I've tried to wrong that. I didn't try. I like to think I am righting those wrongs. Volunteered for years. For almost 4 years straight, I volunteered 4 days a week, 4 hours a day to help people get their lives back, whether it's an inmate or a former inmate or a victim, or other people that are moving through lives that don't have criminal aspects but just get stuck in life.